So I got the last minute, I planned it.
And then tomorrow we have graduation
I'm putting
rehearsal.
together a wedding. I got the
like
box
9 in the
mill
morning.
over at Tohono, you know, Meg Pieces.
Oh, sure.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's June 3rd, approximately 7 p.m., and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the school committee. Our first item on the agenda, as usual, is public participation. Is there anybody who would like to address the committee? Welcome.
Is this good? Yeah, okay. Hello again. Jessie Clements, I'm here representing the PAC, the Parent Advisory Council. Whatever month it was when Dr. Shaverhood, you had to present the revised budget, like you had initially, there was whatever budget was put through and then we had to make cuts from it. And one of the last things you said was East was closing. And I haven't heard any follow-up from that as to what's happening with East. The programs that are at East, the students that are at East, and the staff that's at East. So that's what I'm curious about.
If you would like to respond, you're welcome to.
Yes, right now we're looking at relocating the programs that are presently at East in the co-op, which is the old McDuffie Center. We've had a committee of educators looking at various programs around the area to look at alternative programs to make some adjustments to ours. And we're right now in the transition phase of relocating.
Okay, so how many students are serviced at East, approximately?
The number of students at East total, and that includes PM school as well,
Yeah.
would probably be approximately 111.
Okay, so coming from the SPED side of things, there are students that have IEPs that are going to be affected by some kind of change, correct?
The only change that would affect students with IEPs would be the location.
Okay, so all the services are going to remain the same?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're saying that the students' IEPs, assuming they're signed by parents and whatever, they've had their team meetings this year, no changes need to be made because of a change to East closing and programs being moved somewhere else?
As we do with all students that are on IEPs, we follow the IEP.
Okay, okay, because if kind of thinking, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and I was concerned that with the end of the year coming, June 29th, if a decision was going to be made over the summer, would then those students' IEPs not be, I don't want to say not be followed, but would there need to be adjustments made, like meetings made quickly? So the services are going, whatever their IEPs say, that's what's going to happen.
That's what we do with all our students.
Okay, okay. This committee, how many special education staff members are on this committee to determine what's going to happen? And are there any parents?
I'm counting.
Okay, sorry.
3 or 4.
Okay. Are there any parents or community, like non-Wareham Public School staff members on this
No.
committee? Okay. So I just want to make it known that DESE has, I think it's March 2010, DESE has guidelines for PACs functioning with the school. And there are just 2 things I'm just going to read to you if you want to look. I didn't make copies for you if you want to Google and go on to DESE and read it yourself. But there are guidelines for PACs. A PAC is able to meet regularly with school officials and make recommendations to the school department regarding the planning, development, and evaluation of the district special education programs. I think I kind of combined 2 bullets into one. So we're able to meet regularly with school officials and make recommendations. The PAC can't make any recommendations if we don't, you hear things out in the public, but you can't make any recommendations. So that's why I'm asking about East. I had questions about what was happening, again, from that school committee meeting, whenever that was, a couple months ago. I just want to put it out there that we want to be involved in things special ed. I mean, we're here, we've kind of, I've been involved in the PAC for 2 years. This year we had maybe 5 or 6 speakers, meetings. We not really going into what's happening in the schools, but bringing people to speak, talking about team meetings, how to be prepared, talking about students with anxiety, advocating, things like that. So now we want to have that next step of being involved appropriately. And so that's kind of why I'm here tonight is, again, thank you for answering my questions on East, because we just wanted to make sure that whatever was happening, and we do want to be involved. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about the best way for the PAC to kind of get involved, or if maybe that's something I could reach out to you, I could email you, and we can figure something out.
Let me suggest that I'm grateful for you being here tonight and
Yeah.
asking these questions.
Sure.
But why don't we take this offline?
Yeah.
And have a dialogue between yourself and the superintendent.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
could I have a clarity question?
Sure.
Are you suggesting that you want someone from the PAC to be on this committee?
Sure.
Is that, is that your ultimate goal?
I mean, I don't know. I'd like the PAC to be on a committee that's dealing with special education. If it, if they're at the end stages of their,
I don't know what stage they're on, because I'm not on it either.
Right,
But are you,
right.
but
I want the PAC, I guess if there's a way to say, hey, we're interviewing special ed staff, we're making decisions about, an ASD program at the high school, I think it would be important to have a PAC member on
Okay.
there.
thank you.
Sure.
All set?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we will move on to good news. We have a presentation to make, but before we get to the presentation, does anybody have any other good news they'd like to share with the committee? Mr. Lazarus.
Well, I don't know whether it's good news or not, but I suppose it is for him, but I would like to make a statement more personally than necessarily coming from this committee. It was announced last week that the head basketball coach at Wareham High School is retiring from his position as a coach at the high school, obviously maintaining his position at Old Rochester. And I would like to say that Kevin Brajoli has done a absolutely terrific job with students in Wareham. Obviously, he is primarily a teacher, but he has taught teamwork, and he's taught sportsmanship, and he's brought a number of championships to the school, but more importantly, he has built character in his players over the last 17 years that he has coached. I would venture a guess that if Kevin cut his finger, his blood would be Wareham blue. And we're going to miss his leadership, and I'm sure that upcoming students are going to miss his ability as a coach, as a teacher, and as a leader. And it is my hope that we find someone that will be able to replace him, but I think it's going to be difficult. So this isn't exactly good news, but I wish Kevin well, and I hope we can find someone that will meet our expectations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ditto.
Is there anybody else who has some good news to share? I would only add that those of us who were fortunate enough to be at the athletic awards ceremony this week, not only was it extremely well attended, and I thank that the parents and the players who came to be recognized, but I thought it was really classy for the principal and the athletic director to not only recognize Kevin Brajoli, but there were 2 other very long-standing coaches for cheerleading and multiple other sports. Cindy Sylvia, and I apologize, I'm blanking on the cheerleader coach's name.
Madeline Sylvia.
Thank you, Madeline Sylvia. We had 3 outstanding retirements, and they will be difficult shoes to fill, and Kevin is certainly one of them. Seeing no
Well,
other.
I just, what we just left, it took me a tremendous amount of pride, and it's one of my highlights for the co-op graduation. And I don't know exactly what the number was, but I want to say it's around 50 kids. Got their diplomas from the Wareham Cooperative just this evening at 5 o'clock. And it really is one of the highlights for me, because these kids have had to overcome some obstacles. Some of it brought about by circumstance, but other obviously self-induced. But regardless, they lifted themselves up and they got their diplomas, and kudos to them and their parents. It's a pretty nice evening, and I really enjoyed it.
Well, I know you would never say this, but one of the highlights of that evening was, of just a couple of hours ago, were your comments. I thought they were extremely appropriate, and I hope the graduates were listening carefully.
Thank you.
I also thought the comments by one of the graduates was also
Fantastic.
really good as well. So it was a very, very positive experience for all. Anything else, Madam Superintendent? Okay. We have had the pleasure and the privilege for 2 years to have Nicole Russo as our student representative.
She's done a great job, too.
She has done an outstanding job. I must say that I have been more privileged than everybody else on the committee because I not only got to be a committee member while she was student representative, but I was also her tennis coach. You only got to see that thoughtful, articulate, intelligent representative of the student body. I got to see a person of extraordinary character. Even though it doesn't specifically relate to her duties as a student representative, I can tell you that it's really easy to lead a winning team. Really easy. A team that is struggling to win is really hard to lead. Nicole did that extraordinarily well, and probably the best example of that is the fact that the last practice we had was still filled with fun, enthusiasm, hard work, and dedication, even though we only had a couple more matches to go, and none of those matches made any difference. So to me, it was an example of Nicole's leadership, that people were still having fun and trying to improve during a season that was really tough for wins and losses. So we will miss you, Nicole. And with that, I think there's something inside. Madam Superintendent, would you like to pass this?
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll miss you.
Come here.
I've already got one of those too.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
I guess I forgot to mention, she's also the class valedictorian and will be giving a speech tomorrow night, so be there. You don't want to miss it.
Friday night.
Oh, it's only Wednesday. Friday night, right. Yes.
Maybe Friday night.
Maybe yeah, well, no, don't say that.
Well,
Please
it
don't.
wasn't me. It was the weatherman.
The weather will be just fine. I still remember the night we had
We
to-
don't want to talk about
No, we
that.
don't want to talk about that, that's for sure. Okay, with that, I will move on to the minutes of the meeting of May 20th.
I move we accept the minutes as presented in our packet.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 4-0-0. The fourth item on the agenda is a mid-year review of the superintendent's goals. I asked the superintendent to do this because I don't think we should be surprised about in September, October, when we do the final review, about how the superintendent feels she's doing against these goals. So I thought it was appropriate for her to give us a sense of how she feels she's doing against these goals, and if we have any comments or any adjustments we think are necessary, that's fine. But with this, I'll turn it over to the superintendent to give us a summary of you don't need to read every single line item. Because it's a very detailed presentation of these goals. But if you want to hit some highlights, feel free.
Thank you. What I did is I provided you with examples of what's been going on this year to meet my goals. So on the first one with building capacity, what we focused on, or what I focused on, is looking at opportunities for our educators, our teachers, our staff to attend conferences, professional development. We focused on data, we focused on communication, we focused on how do we expand opportunities for our students, and how do we have better teaching practices. One of the things, every time we send someone to a conference, one of the catches for the person going that they must agree to is to come back and share what they've learned with their peers. So we feel like this provides opportunities for many more people to gain from one person's experience. We've been focusing on data and how do we integrate data in decision-making and also with instruction. We've been selected to present at national conferences because of our efforts in getting out and having conversations with other people. So we believe the opportunities we're providing for our staff improve what we're doing in Wareham, but it also improves what's going on for our students. So if anyone has any questions about goal number 1, I would be happy to answer. Okay, moving on. Goal number 2, looking at how do we allocate resources. Our area of focus would be technology, safe and secure environment. As you know, we've continued the funding for the district resource officer this year, and it will be into next year. We certainly appreciate having that additional help and expertise. We've initiated the electronic visitor systems in all our schools now, so it is scanned through a little device and it comes up with, are there any outstanding concerns that we would catch or not catch if we didn't have this. We have placed interactive projectors in every classroom at Deacon's. We've added a classroom of computers at Minot, and we're getting ready to hardwire all buildings, elementary buildings, so that everything will be wireless. We're preparing for bringing in the number of Chromebooks. We're bringing in approximately 800 Chromebooks, depending on how much money each Chromebook will cost us. The more Chromebooks, the better. And we're looking at how do we shift the iPads to the lower elementaries and to make sure that everyone has availability to interact with technology. Again, a lot of this has been secured through grants. Of course, we appreciate the town meeting vote, and we will be making the best use of the various technology. We're also exploring what's called Brain Gym. Brain Gym it's more of a relaxation, it's refocusing, it's helping kids decompress. And there are these little mini exercises that you do 3 to 5 minutes before a classroom, and it really, it's been proven that it increases students' focus and students' awareness. So we're in the process of sending a number of our elementary staff to Brain Gym conferences, and we've started integrating that into classrooms, and we've noticed some pretty good success. We also have what's called the big balance balls. We have several classrooms that students are now sitting on those stability balls, and we've seen some decrease in behavior. So we're looking at various kinds of technology and to improve student instruction and student achievement. Questions on goal 2? Yes.
Do you view the implementation of the ALICE program as part of your long-term goals for school safety?
Yes, we sent some folks to training. We had training here. Next year, we're looking at training in the elementary, for the elementary staff.
Just so people know, the ALICE program is I think it was developed outside of Massachusetts, maybe Texas, I'm not sure, but it's a new way, a different way of approaching how the school reacts to an intruder. So, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go
No.
ahead.
No, we have that, we're rolling it out.
So you anticipate it being fully implemented by,
Next year will be middle, high. We'll be working on implementing that with students, and we'll be training elementary staff next year. The following year, we would implement it the elementary.
okay.
What does that acronym stand for? I know it's an acronym.
Yes, it
Does anyone know?
No, but I'll look it up.
I used to
Okay.
know.
All right.
I went through the training and I learned the acronym and then I
I
probably
think when
forgot it.
when you discussed it, I don't think I was here. I think I was out on my little vacation. Okay.
Oh, yeah, what is it?
It's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate.
Thank you.
Isn't technology wonderful?
Technology's wonderful.
All right, goal number 3, increasing the leadership capacity of all educators in WPS. We're looking at how do we increase, we want our teachers to be risk takers. We want our teachers to be willing to do what's best for our students. And to do that, we're certainly willing to look at non-traditional opportunities for our teachers, for our paraprofessionals, and how do we groom teacher leaders? Because that's when we really make changes for what's going on in our district. We're working on a strategic plan. We're exploring opportunities to bring in International Baccalaureate. We're sending the high school principal and the middle school principal to training this summer, as well as several staff members. We're looking at how do we provide our students with the opportunities they need to be successful. We're looking at integrating additional technology programs into our high school, and we have a lot of work being done right now that we're not quite ready to share with the public, but we will in the very near future. Questions?
Just one quick question. What is the status and the progress of the strategic planning process? You made mention of it, but it's not written down here, but I know we're in the process of doing that. How are they doing? Where are they at? Are they ready to start their action plans?
On Monday night, actually, we're getting ready to start developing the action plans.
Really? So you've already determined your strategic goals?
That will be also done on Monday night, and it will roll out together, and we'll have different groups working on different.
Okay, thank you.
Question. I have observed that the world of education seems to be less likely to have internal promotions than is quite common in other industries. And what I mean by that is it's routine for people to be promoted up the line in companies, but the number of outside searches that occur in education for positions like principals, assistant principals, superintendents, et cetera, is extraordinarily high. If we had really effective leadership development, would you expect that to increase the number of internal promotions within a district?
Absolutely.
And is that a goal?
It is, because, for several reasons. While coming from the outside into a system certainly is, I'm very grateful for that, but.
We are too.
Thank you. But we have a lot of outstanding, excellent staff in our district. And I believe it's my goal to provide leadership, to provide mentoring, to help our teachers grow. And if part of the growing is to move up to leaders, that's when we see the real change. So absolutely, we're working at doing leadership programs. We want to provide people opportunities because one principal or one superintendent or one director cannot cover what needs to be covered. People have got to take ownership, and they've got to lead from within. Because once you have leading from within, that's when true change takes place. And that's what we want
Right.
here.
Yes.
I'd just like to, I agree with everything you said. However, keep in mind that 4 out of our 5 principals are homegrowns.
I have to think about that.
4 out of our 5 principals are homegrowns. And our previous superintendent was a homegrown. Our previous 2 superintendents were homegrowns.
That's currently true, but there have been certainly some not homegrowns in the
Right,
past as well.
but I says currently,
Yes,
4 out of the 5 principals are homegrowns.
yes, yeah, that's correct. Good point.
So, well, and the
That's-
APs, and our APs are homegrowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that the framework is there to keep that moving. But as the superintendent says, you know, it's a matter of leadership and making them, allowing them to believe that they can advance up the ladder. I think that's very important. Being one that tried and didn't make it.
Not that he remembers. Okay,
Okay. so-
moving along.
Yes, goal 4 is communication and improvement. You know, I am looking all the time at how do we build bridges with the community, different parent groups, certainly the PAC would love to have conversation. And how do we become excellent partners for our community? That's my goal. So I'm always looking at various ways, gathering information, reacting to what is said, and continuing to move ahead with our district. We certainly have had opportunities to have surveys put out, and I think we've reacted to what the surveys have said. I do a monthly or bi-monthly blog just to hopefully strike up some communication. Any questions on number 4?
Seeing none?
Okay. When you look at the different standards, the instructional leadership, you don't have that. I took that off the other. We're continuing to explore what the math program is. We're going to be piloting math program K through 4, 5, 6 next year. We have 2 programs, and our director of curriculum is working with teachers. It will be teacher chosen. They're the ones teaching it. We need to provide the resources, and we hopefully will be coming to you with a choice next year. We're exploring the IB curriculum to intensify the rigor that is offered in our middle school and high school, and this is a multi-year process. We've introduced FAST, and FAST is a online diagnostic test, and you get the results right away. So it's given 3 times a year, and our teachers then have that access, the results, to adjust their instruction for different students. We've also received several grants that have enhanced opportunities for our STEAM program. And so if anyone has any questions on instructional leadership, I would be very happy to answer.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions. So we have reached the point now that all of our grade levels are going to have the same math program. Is that correct? Well, we don't,
Dr. Swan, would you take the mic, please?
I know we have specialized schools now, and they're not sharing grades. So, but I want to make sure that everybody is on the same system. Is that going to happen?
The plan at the moment is that K through 6 will be looking at the same 2 programs.
Okay, so it'll be
The
the same
question
system.
becomes this, and it was brought up yesterday by faculty. So one of the things I would like to explore or think about after this analysis, and I have a template of certain things to look at and check off so that it would be very, hopefully, user-friendly. And the question came up, K to 2, with their developmental levels, if the middle school and Minot chose one program, and the K to 2 thought that the other program was more appropriate for them developmentally, and both programs were reaching the same standards, then would that be a possibility? And my response was, that's an interesting point. I would like to get further on the process and analyze these programs, and we will continue to discuss it.
Well, you have to take into consideration the pedagogy and the methodology that goes along with those programs, because those
Correct.
programs are unique. From where I sit, and I haven't been on the inside, you folks are on the inside, but from where I sit, I think one of the problems that we've had is we don't consistently stay with a particular strategy, particularly in math. I know that several years ago I recommended, and this is before you, I recommended, specialization in math at the elementary level. And that was back when we had, 2 schools servicing grades 3 and 4. And I guess we did do it for a while, but I'm not so sure we're even doing that anymore. And it just seems to me that if we have highly trained, specialized teachers in mathematics and science at the elementary level, that is a strategy that will, I think, render really good success in terms of student achievement. But again, I'm not on the inside looking at this. But what I am discouraged about, and I'm not saying that this is the case, is the fact that in the past, historically, and I guess what does it, Dr. Phil say, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior? We have not had a consistent strategy, particularly in teaching math, and also language arts. So whatever we do, I would like to think that that the programs that we choose would be consistent, and we would give it time to take hold, as opposed to just jumping around and grabbing at straws. So, and again, I may be making some very, very broad assumptions, and if I am, please forgive me. But that's my take on it, is we have to give our strategies, pedagogies, methodologies, a chance to take hold. The other thing is that if we change our strategies or a program, I would assume that it's going to have implications on our common assessments. Because from what I understand, our common assessments are pretty much in place now. And so will that change the scope and the construction of our common assessments as we go forward? So again, that's something that goes hand in hand, in my opinion, because I think a district that has real good, very well thought out and developed common assessments can really, they serve as a great predictor on how these kids are going to do down the road academically, particularly in math, I think. So those are my concerns going forward about the new programs. Are they going to be consistent? Are they even though we don't have the schools sharing grades anymore, there are still some implications for keeping them the same. And if we're still adhering to that specialization philosophy, if not, I don't know. But I think we have to really take a good hard look at not only how our elementary staff is teaching the cores, but how skilled they are at teaching the cores, and I say particularly in mathematics. So that's my concern.
Just to say that I began yesterday, and this has been my message for quite a while, that the answer is not in a program. The answer is in teaching. It's what teachers bring to the table that make a difference in children's lives.
So we can agree to disagree on that.
So we agree, you don't agree, but,
No.
okay, well, I think that's what you said.
You have to have a consistent strategy, particularly in teaching math.
But it's not the answer if you don't know how to teach the
Oh,
subject.
absolutely, absolutely.
So above it, if you assume that there are some things that they know, and that there are standards attached to what it is they're supposed to, that children should know at the end of the experience, then how that's delivered is extremely important.
All right, I couldn't agree more.
And
However,
elementary teachers were trained as general education elementary teachers. They were not trained as math
but
specialists.
they were supposed to be trained as math specialists when we talked about this several years ago.
Well, to
But this is before Andrea.
my experience with elementary school teachers is that if they like math, then they take an affinity to that and they learn a lot about teaching math.
The research shows that the overwhelming majority of elementary school teachers do not like math.
That's my point. So,
That's my
with
point.
that being said, it's important that good pedagogical techniques in teaching math, regardless of the program or the name of that program, if it's standards driven, is as important in the implementation of any kind of math instruction
But
as is what program is
Some
developed.
programs are better than others in terms of providing those strategies to the teachers.
True.
Thank you.
On that note of common consensus,
I'll move on.
okay. I do want to make one point, and Dr. Schwam, if you could stay there for a second. There is a lot of parental sensitivity across the nation about testing.
There is.
I want to ask a question, and I think I know the answer. I hope I know the answer, but I want you to confirm it for the parents that are here and listening. Is it fair to say that with the exception of the mandated testing, MCAS Park comes to mind, that your effort has been to make as much of the other testing that takes place formative and diagnostic as compared to just accumulating data so we can see how much people have achieved? Is that a fair statement?
That's fair.
Okay. And I think that's critically important, and I know the superintendent does as well because you're following her direction on this. So parents should feel comfortable that if generally speaking, if kids are taking a test, we're getting the results back very quickly, and we're using them to figure out why kids are or are not learning the subject according to those standards. Okay, good, thank you.
Operations and management, we certainly have completed the roof project. As I shared with you the last time, we will be invited into the next project for DECAS. We have policies in place. We work very hard to make sure our policies are followed, and we run a very tight fiscal system. Thanks to Mr. McMillan, he does a wonderful job, but we're looking at how do we become efficient and effective and do what's right for kids. So any questions on operation and management? All right, family and community engagement. You know, again, we're always looking at ways to engage our families and our community. Examples, we had the ice cream social for kindergarten, and I know this has been a long-standing, but we had so many families. I gave away so many sprinkles and jimmies, but kids really enjoyed it, and Mel did a great job. Next time we'll have coffee ice cream.
Thank you.
Now we're accommodating school committee members and not kids? I thought we were children, student-oriented.
We are, but, you know, we want to keep everyone happy. Tomorrow night,
Small things make me happy.
Tomorrow night, we have the expo at the middle school. I believe it starts at 5 o'clock. We have the Honors Award, and we've had art shows this year. We try to open up our buildings to show all the great things that are going on for our students, and if anyone has any additional ideas, we would love to hear them, but we're always looking to be engaged and responsive. Any questions on family and community?
All set.
All right. And professional culture. You know, this comes back to empowering others, because part of my role as the superintendent is to make things happen for people by removing barriers, because I believe my job is to empower others to be successful, hence students will be successful. And to do that, I have to listen, we have to respond, but we all have to agree we're here for students. And so I hope that my shared vision has come across in that manner. I'm always willing to listen for what's best for kids. Any questions about professional culture? Okay.
Any final comments or questions for the superintendent? The purpose of this was to make sure she's not surprised by our reaction, a few months from now. Okay, moving on.
Wait, I have one more. Just real
Is it on the
quick.
agenda?
No, it's about my
Oh,
evaluation.
okay.
So, I guess what I would also say is, part of my job is to be responsive and listen. So if anyone, committee, community, parents, have questions, have comments, I certainly would appreciate feedback, because my job is to help everyone make this a very best district for kids, and to do that, we have to work together. So any help you can give me, I certainly greatly appreciate. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. There is both a current and a proposed bus transportation policy in your packet. The difference between the two is quite obvious. It needs to be addressed because the budget that was passed makes the financial assumption that the savings will be accrued based upon the proposed policy. So it's appropriate for us to review, consider, and vote on this revision to the policy. It's a short one. I will read it for the sake of the people in the audience and listening at home. Any K-12, this is the proposed policy, any K-12 student residing in Wareham, living less than 1 mile from school, will not be provided bus transportation. All enrolled students in a Wareham district school living more than 1 mile from school will be provided transportation to and from his or her home or other locations as approved. Comments, questions from the committee? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, is there any reason we need to vote on this tonight? Because, as you know, my position on this, I will be voting no on this, and we don't have a full delegation, so you might want to reschedule the vote on this. I don't know how anyone else is going to vote.
No, I understand that. And I did not anticipate Mrs. Vugan being ill. And I'm more than willing to put it off a week, and I don't think there's any urgency associated with doing so I appreciate the suggestion. I will say that I would like the superintendent to consider the following. One of the ways that this was made a little bit more palatable to the committee was your suggestion that in severely inclement weather, there would be, at your discretion, accommodations made with mega stops or whatever term you want to use that would deal with the safety issues associated with severely inclement weather. I would not be opposed to a policy that acknowledged your discretion in doing so. And my suggestion to the other committee members, if you wanted to make other suggestions for the next time this is brought up, I think that would be totally appropriate. Yes.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So would that be something, obviously not guaranteed, but in an inclement weather situation, there may not always be room on the buses for those kids?
That's a
Is
good
that
point.
Correct.
Correct. And in which case, the question is, do we have extra functioning buses that could be used as a result of that? And the answer to that question is generally yes, for a variety of reasons, simply because a certain number of spares is essential, because buses, like everything else, do occasionally break down.
Okay.
But your point is well taken, and I know you were on a crowded bus this year.
I was.
Anything else before we move on? Okay,
So we're gonna delay this?
we are going to delay this, and thank you for the suggestion. Next on the agenda is the district handbook. Dr. Schramm.
I appreciate the superintendent allowing a do-over for this particular agenda item. You received a list of the changes in one piece of paper, basically, of the changes that were made in the handbook. I have earmarked those pages in case you might have any questions.
So the changes are already made on this, is that correct?
Yes.
So this is ready for press? What we got in our packet, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Comments, concerns, questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Judy.
Has this already been gone over with the lawyer? This is like the final edition of this? An attorney has looked at it?
Yes.
Yes, we had an attorney review it at the beginning of last school year, and any changes were either policy or any legal changes. And I would say the only thing that would hold us up for going to press would be the bus, because we do need to make the bus policy, and after that has been made, whatever changed, then we would be ready to take it to press.
Thank
We-
you.
The only significant changes in the draft were not in the beginning of the handbook, but where the policies had been overdue. So, for example, there might have been a date for 2004, and I know that the policy subcommittee probably met. So if there was no change, but there was a date associated with the meeting of that policy, we updated that policy. If an amendment had been made, we removed the old policy and placed the new policy in according to what was voted by the school committee after policy subcommittee.
So it's cleaned up document.
Yes.
So,
So we can't vote on this?
Because of the bus one?
Oh, God, I didn't think about that.
that's okay.
So I guess it's not ready for press.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Don't apologize. I think it's important enough that it can be delayed a couple of weeks. I asked our student representative the following question, and I did not prompt her for an answer, because it was by text anyway, so she couldn't even see my facial
So
expression.
you have evidence to the conversation.
And I said, during your 4 years as a student, with the exception of perhaps preparing for a school committee meeting,
Or a tennis match.
did you or your parents ever look at the district handbook? I believe that's the question I asked.
It
Yes.
was.
And I will allow the student representative to now answer that question in public.
If she wants to.
Oh, I do.
She already agreed to answer.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so.
she's a senior, so she can.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
I have personally never needed to open the district handbook. My parents haven't either. The only thing I've ever had to look at ever was the dress code for my school's handbook, because it changes every year.
Mhm.
So that's something I look at consistently, or the attendance policy, but I've never had to look at the district handbook for any particular reason. So no, I haven't.
Thank you. So I looked at this 100-plus page document, and it occurred to me it was a victory for attorneys. No offense, Mr. Lazarus, that it is so filled with verbiage and is so daunting to probably parents as well as students, that it is not
And
serving
the
any...
editor,
Excuse me?
and the editor.
Yes, exactly, and the editor. That it is not in fact serving any purpose other than for us to be in compliance, because we have to say what the policies are, and we have to do it in a manner that is legally proclaimed. I think this handbook, and I realize I'm talking future, not present. I'm planting hopefully a seed in fertile ground. I think it is desperately in need of an executive summary that people would be encouraged to read, and it would say things like, you have a right not to be harassed. And if you are harassed,
Here's what you do.
here's what you can do about it, and for more details, see page such and such in the district handbook. You also have a responsibility not to harass. And if you do harass, here are the consequences of harassing, and for more details, see this page in the district handbook. People, I suspect, would actually read that, and maybe it would be 4 or 5, 6 pages tops of an executive summary of your rights and responsibilities as a student in the Wareham Public Schools. We still have to have this 100-page document, but the fact that it didn't get read would be okay because it now becomes a reference document rather than an actual document that people would read unless they happen to need that reference after looking through the executive summary. So if we decide we want to do something about this, I think an executive summary of 5 or 6 pages with that kind of very specific, don't do this, and you have a right not to have this happen to you, et cetera, et cetera. Just food for thought. Any other comments before we, yes?
Thank you. In our packet, we received a one-page document that says listed below are the proposed changes to the district handbook. And the first one says page 14, 15, 16, 17, consequence added under discipline. I don't see any consequence added under discipline, nor do I see any discipline designations on pages 14, 15, 16, and 17.
I had the same problem when I was looking through it. Couldn't reference it.
And in the past, the consequences and the discipline policies that follow, the consequences for those discipline policies were always in the individual school handbooks and not necessarily in the district handbook, unless I'm missing something completely.
I know that on page 17, there is a listed consequence under
Attendance policies.
Group D.
Yeah.
So, starting on page 16, where it indicates Group D
This
offenses,
isn't
and then
simple
under,
going
so
from
there
one
are,
page.
so on page
Yeah.
14 it begins, right? Then on page,
Now, let me get back to it,
Okay, can I address that?
please.
Because I will tell you, you should have, and we've had a little bit of trouble going back
It has
and
been hard.
forth between a Mac and a
PC.
PC.
there's been some
Because what I
electronic
did,
glitches.
because I
They were here.
added,
They're
are they
here.
on yours?
Mhm.
Because I added consequence, because you had asked about that.
Right,
So I had taken from the handbook at the high schools, I did the consequence under A, and then I added consequences under B, and
Yep.
consequences under C
And
and
D.
D.
Yep,
So if it's not there, we've lost it someplace in shifting. It has been added, we vetted it with the administrators, so they've looked at everything, and I did respond to what you had asked for. So
Well,
I'll have to
I'm-
find it.
it may be in the version that I have, which was sent out just recently, but I don't see it here.
well, just as an example, it doesn't give an absolute, but it gives an example of possible consequences as a result of these actions. So,
Well, if I may interrupt just for one moment.
sure.
Page 14 in this version that I have talks about appeals processes, credit retrieval, absence from school, tardy to school, out of school suspension.
That,
Page 15,
pages are different.
page
With different
15
content.
talks about child abuse neglect reporting, which is 51A reporting. Page 16 talks about
Mr. Lazarus, can I interrupt?
please.
I am really sorry that Dr. Sylvia is not here to hear me say this, but I think this is an example of where electronics have failed us.
Yes.
Meaning, if we had pieces of paper that actually had this information on it. So since we have to put this off for another meeting anyway because of bus transportation, I would like to actually see the changes on the screen, and with pieces of paper. It doesn't have to be, in other words, we don't need to see
where the changes are.
see the actual changes
Yep.
get sent in the packet for our next time, so that we're all looking at the same thing, because I think there are formatting issues, I think there are even PC operating systems issues, and I think we've been let down, and it's not productive to go through this process this evening and during a public meeting. So, because I share Mr. Lazarus's frustrations, and no one should feel anything except that the system let us down. So let's, with the superintendent's approval, since we have to come back for this anyway, I think we should just put this off for yet one more week, or two more weeks, I should say.
And my apologies, because we thought we'd been back and forth, and
Because I had the same problem with the group A, B, C, D consequences issue.
Oh, that's, because even the page numbers that you mentioned
Right,
are not the same page numbers that I have in front of me.
exactly.
So
It's
it's difficult to communicate when we don't have the same document, or we're not looking at the same
Yep.
space.
You're right. You're right.
And there was I guess we assumed, right, that it went correctly. And this is now twice that it's happened this way, where
Yes.
it's not gone correctly and there's been miscommunication as a result.
I just sent you my copy. So if you could check to see if because you have a PC, at some point, just let me know.
So on it starts with search and seizure on page 14 in this version. So if you.
My version
I know.
doesn't have search and seizure on page 14.
So if you open Kim's, though, as she sent it to you at some point, and you just remember that search and seizure is 14, then I'm wondering if that is in fact the same, that you received what I have in
Okay.
front of me, I guess is what, I'm just trying to cue it so that,
Well, let me see here.
We'll go back through and look at the format. Maybe we can get our tech department to
look at it.
help
Okay.
us.
You agree that the time is not of the essence, we can handle this in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks?
My apologies for
Okay.
3 strikes and I'm out then. Get one more shot at this.
Good news is I don't think of you as swinging, so. Exactly. So, yes. You missed me acknowledging that technology failed us, Dr. Sylvia.
Again.
Okay. Release of executive session minutes. Michelle, do you happen to have the copies of the minutes with you?
I do.
Okay, could you just pass them over to me, please? One of the responsibilities of the chair is to look through executive session minutes and make the determination whether it's appropriate to release them.
Yes.
So I am hereby releasing the executive session minutes of February 5th, May 7th, May 15th, February 24th also, sorry, May 15th, September, these are all 2014, by the way, so I'll repeat. February 5th, February 24th, May 7th, May 15th, September 3rd, And that's all 2014, and now March 23rd and April 2nd of 2015. So that's short and sweet, but that's all that's necessary for me to do is simply declare them now released. And if you would pass them back, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Superintendent's report, please.
Thank you. This Thursday and Friday, we'll have visitors from the Department of Education, Office of Nutrition, Support and Outreach, visiting DECUS, looking at the breakfast program, looking at how do we, any services they can offer. So it will be district-wide, but they're going to focus at DECUS, and then we'll just spread it out. So that will be, we're looking forward to that. We received from the Department of Education, DESE, release dates for MCAS. Now, what's interesting is, of course, there's always the notation that it can change, but they're going to start releasing preliminary MCAS alt results and portfolio on June 15th. In early August, we will have our preliminary rosters, and July 3rd, they're saying we'll have partial MCAS reports available. Of course, that will all be embargoed, but it will certainly give us an impact or an idea of where we are. So we're
Did you
looking
say
at that.
August for the preliminary and then July?
July for partial preliminary.
Okay.
And August for the rosters. They're saying that early September, it will be posted, the official rosters, and then unembargoed mid-September. Tomorrow night, I would urge everyone that has some free time to visit our awards night. It will be quite exciting to celebrate our seniors. And then Friday is graduation, knock on wood, and we're very thrilled. That ends my report.
Thank you. School committee reports. Anything happening at the collaborative? All set? Okay.
All set.
Earlier this, actually, it was last month. I guess it was about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago. Division 7, which is Cape and Islands, Wareham, Bourne, had a meeting, and I am happy to say that there were 2 presentations made. One was by the manager of the evaluation implementation for the Department of Education at the state level. The reason I'm happy to say that we had Ron Noble there was because he made it clear in my mind, and I would be happy to hear the superintendent and Dr. Schwam's assessment, that despite the fact that the implementation of educator evaluations in Massachusetts has been a prolonged and occasionally difficult process, I think we're moving in a better direction than many other states. And the use of data will be tightly controlled as compared to other states where they've mandated that it represent, for example, half of a teacher's evaluation. And I think overall there is a sensitivity to the use of data, and there's a sensitivity that we're talking about the professional livelihoods of key people, certainly within Wareham and across the state, when it comes to this evaluation process, which starts at the superintendent and goes down to the classroom teacher. So I think the clarity that he brought to it was useful, and I think we can expect it to continue to be a valuable, a value-added process for the district as we move forward under the direction of Dr. Schwam. The second presentation was from a chairman of the Department of STEAM Education and Teacher Preparation at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. I thought she did an outstanding job talking about teacher preparation, professional development, And one of the things that surprised me a little bit, but I think it's also very positive, was she said that it's now actually much more difficult to become a teacher in Massachusetts than it used to be, and she believes that the quality of teachers that we'll be hiring will continue to improve. And I thought she was a passionate, idealistic speaker who had a lot of good things to say about what one can get out of certainly the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, but in general, teacher programs in Massachusetts. Anything to add?
Did they,
Yes.
did they have anything to say about providing assistance to the local communities to pay these up-and-coming outstanding teachers comparably?
I think she would have, with a smile, punted rather quickly on that
Yeah, I would think so,
subject.
too.
Yes, that is an important detail in this effort to provide the best possible education. Yes. Anything else? Okay. Any other business that, more from our student representative? Is this your last
Yes.
speech of the?
It is. Okay, so I just want to say it's been an honor for me to represent my peers on this committee. I'm going to miss it, and I have been very lucky to go through Wareham Public Schools, and this committee is a big part of what makes it so special. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Even when you got home at 11 o'clock at night?
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
being the old fogey on the committee, and almost 20 years now, I can honestly say that Nicole ranks at the absolute top of the student representatives that we've had. So I want to personally wish you luck, and I want to thank you for your contributions.
I was going to say that, but I'm biased, so I. Okay, anything else from the committee? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Wow.
And I will miss you.